Okay, so we're going to pick up in Romans chapter 9, starting in verse 17, and we're going to go through the end of the chapter in 33. Or that's my plan, anyways. So hope that I accomplish that. So I'd like to move on to the next chapter. So, but so anyways, okay. Let me just go ahead and read the passage, and then we'll dive into it, talk about it more and more. So, okay. It says, "For the scripture says to the Pharaoh, for this very purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name will be declared in all the earth. Therefore he has mercy on whom he wills, and whom he wills he hardens. You will say to me then, why does he still find fault for who has resisted his will? But indeed, O man, who are you to reply against God? Will the thing formed say to him who formed it, why have you made me like this? Does the potter have the power over the clay from the same lump to make one vessel of honor and another of dishonor? What if God, wanting to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much suffering the vessels of wrath prepared for destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he has prepared beforehand for glory? Even us, whom he called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles. As he says also in Hosea, I will call them my people, who are not my people, and her beloved, who was not beloved. And it shall come to pass, in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there they shall be called sons of the living God. Isaiah also cried out concerning Israel, though the number of children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, the remnant will be saved. For he will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because the Lord will make a short work upon the earth. And Isaiah said before, unless the Lord of the Sabbath had left us a seed, we would have become like Sodom, and we would have been made like Gomorrah. Present condition of Israel. What shall we say then? The Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness have attained the righteousness, even the righteousness of faith. But Israel, pursuing the law of righteousness, has not attained the law of righteousness. Why? Because they did not seek it by faith, but as it were by the works of the law. For they stumbled at the stumbling stone, as it is written, behold, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone and a rock of offense, and whoever believes on him will not be put to shame. All right. Okay, so in the first part of the chapter, Paul was giving us examples of God's sovereign choices. He chose Isaac over Ishmael, even though Isaac was not the firstborn. He chose Jacob over Esau, even though Jacob was not the firstborn. The custom would have been that the firstborn would have received the blessing and the majority portion of the inheritance and stuff. And so now God is using Pharaoh in Egypt, but he does something different here. He raised him up and put him in place for the purpose of showing his glory and his power through him, even though Pharaoh was rebellious and did not follow the Lord at all. We see that in different places throughout the Bible where God used people that were not following him to accomplish his purpose, and Pharaoh was one of them. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart against him, against God. So, do you think it's unfair for God to harden Pharaoh's heart? No? Why?
Because he wasn't following. He wasn't following God.
Right, yeah. And we can go period of time in our lives and deny God, not want anything to do with Him and everything, and just not be following Him at all, and we might be fine. Okay, God's still calling out to us, and God still wants us to come to Him. Some cases, God calls out to us all of our lives, but also in some cases, Paul says that God will turn us over to our reprobate mind, to the sinful desires of our mind and of our heart, because our heart has become so wicked, and just everything about us has become so wicked in God's eyes. And that's what's happening here with Pharaoh. Pharaoh was a person that just was wicked in God's eyes. Held the slaves in bondage, or held the people of Israel in slavery and in bondage and everything, and made them work 3 times as hard by taking away the things that the ingredients for the work that he was making them to do. Made them go find it on their own and everything. And even when Moses came and approached him and started to talk to him about letting the people go, or at least letting them go out into the wilderness Pharaoh was like, no, and he doubled the workload. Told him, okay, fine, you want to, we're going to double the workload. And so he had gone past the point of God calling him. And so he hardened his heart. But he used Pharaoh so that when everybody else, all the other nations, saw what happened there, or heard about what happened there, that they would know that God was in control. That God is number one. That He is the only God, the only true God. Right?
I believe that even hundreds of years later, during the time of Samuel, when Eli and when the Israelites brought the ark out into the battlefield against the Philistines were afraid in mentioning the fact that was the same type of power that brought 10 plagues onto Egypt.
Right.
So it went on. That war went on for hundreds of years.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Paul says here that, for this very purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name will be declared in all the earth. Verse 17. And so, he's got a purpose for everybody. Even if the person doesn't realize that he or she's being used for God's purpose, God's still got a purpose for us.
Yeah.
And that God is going to receive glory from people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't always happen that some people, are put into a position where they can God can influence so many people with them and everything. But have you ever seen a person that was so bad, so wicked, that it just made you grateful that you're with God and that you've been forgiven?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's kind of like what God was using with Pharaoh for. He was showing that the rest of the world and that, the rest of the nations, because like Robbie said, it spread for hundreds of years. They were talking about it. And they knew. 40 years later, when the children of Israel finally crossed over into the Promised Land, the people of Jericho were scared because they had seen the power. They had seen what God had done. They knew what God did in Egypt 40 years earlier. And they had seen the power of the towns that they had already conquered before they got to Jericho. And the people were scared. That's what the prostitute Rahab told them. She said, people are scared of you. She said, and I know that you have the one true God. And so, I want to go with you.
Exactly.
So, and she is now in the lineage of Jesus. And so, that's just, God can use people in so many different ways. And that's what He's doing here. He's calling them out, right? So, but we get to, and so it's really it's God's sovereign choice how He uses somebody, and or how he I don't want to say uses because that's not a good, but how His will is accomplished in that person's life. Let's
Right.
go that way.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's been a way.
And His will be accomplished. And God will do many different ways to do it. And so, no, it's really not unfair because we have a choice. God's not going
Amen.
to just turn us over to the evil desires of our heart if we don't answer His call within a short period of time.
No.
A year or a few months or something like that. For God to turn us over and to say, okay, you had your chance, I'm done with you, then you have to live a lifestyle that is just incredibly, incredibly wicked.
I can't even begin to imagine.
Right. So, I mean, look at some of the, and God raises some of these people up and puts them in a position of power.
Amen.
I mean, we could probably look at some of our leaders and think that, God raised them up and, that they're not exactly great leaders. They're not what we would call godly people. But they're in
I'm
a
pretty
position-
sure that almost everyone in that Congress building has that
I
power.
don't know about everybody in there, but
Say it, Rody.
That's right. Same thing y'all thinking.
don't get my video pulled off of YouTube, thank you.
Okay, you got a point. Never mind.
I ain't gonna say it. That's good. I love how funny you. I love it.
I get you, but sometimes you gotta use a little diplomacy. So,
Yeah, that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
You're really good.
but anyway, but I mean, we and we see in world leaders that there are people in the world that are leaders of countries and stuff like that don't, but yet there's God might be using them for a divine purpose.
Maybe.
Or demonstrating His purpose in them and what they're doing. And so, but God, as it says, there's always a remnant. God always leaves a remnant. Even when He does the judgment against the people or whatever, wipes them out. And we've seen throughout history that people have tried to wipe out the Jews. The Jews are just completely not liked by so many different nations and people and other religious groups and things like that they're just not liked by them, and people have tried to wipe them out.
It's even worse now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's even worse now. Look at what's going on over there now. They're trying to wipe them out now and everything. I mean, and we had Hitler trying to eradicate them and everything. And I mean, and I'm not saying God raised them up for that, but
No.
we also see many, many times, and that's what Paul's finishing this chapter out with, is that he's saying that the Gentiles, even though the Jews looked down on the Gentiles and treated them poorly, wouldn't talk to them and didn't want to associate with them, and thought that they were so much better than the Gentiles, but yet the Gentiles were responding to the gospel a whole lot better than the Jews were, and more of the Gentiles were becoming saved than the Jews were, because the Jews thought that they were the cream of the crop. We're God's chosen people.
I mean, that might have something to do with the hatred too, but
Right, but exactly. And so, but it's, they just thought, they just didn't, they saw the Messiah. They saw, and they didn't respond. They didn't respond to him and stuff. And so that's what he's saying throughout this passage or whatever. But another point, and it is possible for you to have a hardened heart. In fact, in Hebrews 3, 7 through 15, it warns us about that. It says, "Therefore, as the Holy Spirit says, today, if you will hear His voice, do not harden your hearts as in rebellion. For the day of trial in the wilderness, in the day of trial in the wilderness, where your fathers tested me, tried me, and saw my works 40 years. Therefore I was angry with that generation, and said, they always go astray in their heart, and they have not known my ways. So I swore in my wrath, that they shall not enter my rest. Beware, brethren, lest there be any of you with an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. But exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we have become partakers of Christ, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast to the end. While it is said, today if you will hear my voice, do not harden your hearts as in rebellion. Right? So it's still possible to harden your heart. It is very, very possible to harden your heart. And again, God's gonna continue to call you until you take your last breath, or he comes back, or you just become so far from him and deny him so much and do so much against him that he thinks that, he knows that there's no chance for you anymore. So he's going to harden your heart, and then he'll, like he did with Pharaoh, he'll put you in situations where his glory will come out of it, even if you don't intend it that way.
Right.
Because Pharaoh definitely didn't intend to be bringing glory to God through all this.
No.
But that's what happened. So, and the people continue to reject the plan for them. Okay? God has a plan for all of us. And he wants to do, he wants us to do his plan, his will, his work in our lives. Okay? So, does the clay tell the potter, don't make me a bowl?
No, I don't.
Don't make me this, or make me a beautiful vase or something. Make me something great. No, it doesn't get a choice.
No.
Yeah. I love that song, The Potter Knows the Clay, because it's a good representation.
Yeah. And God has a plan for us. But yet we tell God all the time, nope, we know that you know best. How many times have we done that? We know that you know best for us. You have a plan for us that is far better than anything. Yes, it may be a hard road. Yes, it may have a lot of trials and tribulations and things that you're going to have to walk through. But that's life. Hate to break it to everybody, but that's life.
Yeah.
Okay? And God uses those in our lives to make us stronger and to also rely on him more. Sometimes people need to have their world complete that they've built and think that they've got it all under control, have that all just completely fall in around them for them to come to acceptance of Christ.
And sometimes that happens.
Yeah, it does happen. That's what happened with Pharaoh. He thought he was in charge, no problem. I'm going to double your workload because you're trying to rebel against me, and I'm going to punish you by doubling your workload. We're going to take your straw away. Go find your own straw out in the desert, and but make twice as many bricks. I mean, so, and he thought that he was top dog. He thought he was great. But it ended up costing him his life in the end. And he is remembered for what happened there. And how God worked in that place. And freed the Israelites.
Yeah.
And so, but we as a people will take and be, God's got a great plan for us, but because it doesn't look like it's a great plan, that looks like, an awful lot of trouble. Okay? I kind of think about that movie, Finding Nemo. And they're like, they get there and
The trench.
the fish or whatever, it gives them the fish that give them directions or whatever, say, go through the trench, not over the trench. And they get to the trench and one of the fish is like, that looks too scary. We don't need to go that way. But the instructions were to go through the trench. So they go up. So he's like, come on, let's go this way. So he gets them to go that way, and they go up, and he's like, we're going to go over the trench. And so they go up over the trench. Oh, look at how great this is. But there was an awful lot of jellyfish up there.
Yeah.
And they
Not
got
2 minutes
stung,
later, they got
and
stung by
everything
jellyfish.
else. They got attacked and got stung, and they got hurt.
Barely made it out of there.
Right.
And we don't
And it,
listen.
exactly, and that's a picture of our lives. We look at something and say, I don't want that. I don't want that heartache. I don't want that trial in my life. I don't want to go through that, God. I'm not going to do that. I can get to that same destination by doing it this way. So I'm going to do it this way.
More-
And it causes problems.
I learned the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all have learned the hard way
Yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only do we not want to listen, for some of us, we don't have the patience to do it the way we're
Yeah.
supposed to do it.
Right. Exactly.
And this way's going to be a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get to that end result much quicker.
Well,
So,
I
yeah,
can
this
see
is-
it right there. Why have
Yeah.
I got to go that way?
Yeah.
You gotta go through.
Exactly. So, you know.
Learning the hard way.
Yes,
Exactly.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Learning the hard way, exactly. I mean, and so that's what, you know, but we just take and that's what we do. That's what we do. We tell God, nope. Like he says here, he says, does not the potter have the power over the clay from the same lump to make one vessel of honor and another of dishonor? And he's talking about Pharaoh's heart being hardened here, and that, you know, he's, okay, so the same lump of clay, you got two people, one is following God and in the glory and everything, and then somebody else is not. And so, you know, but, and it, you know, it can come from the same family.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You come from the same family. You've got a brother or a sister that was raised in the same family as you, was raised the same way by the same parents who poured into you and loved and cared for you all those years as you were growing up and taught you and everything. And then one child is living for God and another child wants nothing to do with God, completely walks away. And so, but it's the same upbringing, same everything. I mean, but it's just one vessel for glory, one vessel for dishonor, or for honor, and one vessel for dishonor. I mean, that's, and don't get to the point where your heart gets hardened. Because when your heart's hardened, there's no turning back at that point. Or it would take a very, very lot to turn you back. And I'm not saying that God doesn't harden our heart for a season. God may harden our heart. Maybe that's what we need. He hardens our heart and makes us so far against God. But then at some point we do come back. Because God can, you know,
Yeah.
God can reach out to us anyway. And He does. He uses everything. Like we're talking about. Hard times and
Yeah.
just anything and everything God will use to reach us. And so, you know, and He's got a great plan for us. And the people of Israel, what Paul's saying here is that the Gentiles are understanding this a whole lot more than the Jewish nation was getting it. Again, a lot of that had to do with the fact that they felt they put out their chest. We're God's chosen people. We're the favorites. We're not them Gentile dogs. You know. So, seen some dogs that are more loving than people are sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't love dogs.
Amen.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
Amen.
so sorry. I'd rather be with dogs.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like,
I felt that. I really did.
So, you know.
It's the truth.
Yeah. You know.
pretty funny.
So, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, you know. And the thing of it is that God can use an animal. He could use a dog to reach you. Okay, the dog can't talk to you, but dog, you never know though. The dog might just He gave the power for a donkey to talk, and so it's possible. He had a fish go swallow Jonah.
Yeah.
Of all the
That's true.
bodies in the sea, and all the other stuff in the sea, he picked a fish, told it to go swallow Jonah whole. Don't digest him. Just
That's right.
store him for a few days for me.
I'm sure the fish probably thought there was a whole lot bigger stuff for me to eat, but okay.
Yeah, well,
And that's like, I love the mountains, I love nature, but people can, like, he can reach people, like, you see, like, just the birds, the tree, like, just nature, like,
Oh, yeah.
that just means so much to me, like,
Yeah.
deer, like, just seeing all that,
I guarantee if a dog starts talking, Jody will be down up to maybe Florida.
yeah. So,
That's so
but,
funny.
but yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is like you said, mountains and nature and
Even the ocean,
and
you
the
know.
ocean and the
Yeah.
I just don't know
How
how
can
people don't
we-
believe, yeah.
right,
I just don't-
exactly.
I
How
don't get it.
how can we look at it and think, yeah, this is just some big cosmic accident?
Right.
Really? Or, we evolved,
Something.
but yet as we get older, we don't evolve. We don't get stronger. The older we get, we tend to get weaker and
Yeah.
and
Like,
pass and go. And I'm just, So how can you possibly think, oh yeah, we're evolving. I'm sorry.
all of this is way too precise to be an accident. Excuse me,
Exactly.
but
There's an
as far as-
intelligent designer.
as far as I know from all these scientists and whatnot, there's not been a single speck of life outside of our planet. So
They're trying real hard to
they're
prove
trying
it,
to
too.
find it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there can't be,
They're
but
trying to say that they've now found life on Mars, or the proof of that there was life on Mars, and just like, okay.
until they actually find life, they can't say anything.
So, well, they have a theory. They call it a theory.
Exactly, it's serious. So
I got theories too.
I got my own theories as well. This is way too precise to be an accident.
Yeah, I got my theories. I think you a little pulling crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it's okay. So, I still love you. I still want you to, come to Christ. Don't harden your heart. So, but yeah. So we. So that's what Paul's saying here is he showed us that God chooses things that are not what people would say is not normal, and then he does things like hardening Pharaoh's heart. A lot of people would say that's not fair. Okay, the modern phrase for that is people back then were saying, well, that's not fair that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Well, the modern phrase for that is, why would a loving God send somebody to hell?
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't. You choose to go there yourself. Hell was
Yeah,
not made
that's
for
right.
us. Hell was made for the rebellious angels.
Yep.
But if we're going to be rebellious humans that want nothing to do with God, then, okay, you can go here when you die, when the judgment happens.
I guarantee it would. Think of it like in the sense of the law. If you break the law, if you kill somebody, what's going to happen? You're going to go to jail. Could potentially end up on death row.
Right. So, exactly. There's consequences for our actions here and in the afterlife.
Exactly.
If we choose to deny God our whole life here, then He's going to deny us when we
Right.
get to stand before Him on Judgment Day. And so that's what we need to be. But that's kind of really the modern phrase. I've heard that so many times.
Yeah.
I've seen it and heard it so many times that people say, well, why would a loving God? If you say that He's a loving God and He loves us and everything, why would He send us to hell? Because, okay, do you have kids? Do you discipline your kids? Yes, but I wouldn't send them to hell. Well, do you get to the point where You have to use tough love with your kids and say, you're no longer welcome in my house because you won't have some sense about you. Yeah, lots of people have had to do it.
Right.
Lots of people.
Hmm.
And so that's basically what God's doing.
Yeah.
God gives you a chance to do what you know you should do and live a decent life and live for Him and, you know, honor Him and at least acknowledge Him. But if you choose not to, then okay, you're not welcome in His house in heaven. So, questions, comments, thoughts about this passage? This chapter was a very tough chapter for me overall. I had to do a lot of digging and studying, and I have several different like I said last week, I got commentaries I use, and I try to read the passage and seek God about it and get what I think it's saying, and then I'll go and read commentaries and find out if other people feel the same way or if I'm missing something. And, you know, sometimes I end up digging into more than one commentary, and then things get kind of crossed up, and sometimes people are saying different things and stuff. And so,
I think you're doing great.
Yeah, I really enjoy that.
These sheets are wonderful.
Yes.
good.
Oh, you want me to stop
Yeah,
it?
you
Or?
can stop it.
Okay.
So.